I remember my mom grabbing the three of us and putting us inside the tiny little shack that we lived in. My mom locked the door as she left the shack. She locked the door from the outside, leaving my two brothers and I in this wet, uncomfortable, dark. The only light that we could see coming in was the light of the metal roof that we had. Now I am trapped. Something that was safe, it's no longer safe. We had a little bit of water, but no food. And I wasn't five. I just wasn't five anymore. Now this feeling just surfaced of not of desperation, but this feeling surface of I'm the oldest and I have the responsibility to take care of my brothers. You can just imagine the smell, what we looked like, everything. So those adults stopped. And because they stopped and I saw horror in their faces, my brain was saying, you are disappointing them. They're not coming in. They're making those faces because of you. Because of you. One child went into that shack, and 7 days later, another child came back full of doubts and fear and scars. Even before all of this happened, we were so poor that we did not eat every day. We would eat whenever we could eat. And at times we would eat ants in the dirt that came with those ants in order just to keep going. I was ashamed. I was hurt. And for years, I did not tell my story.
Hi, I'm your host, Reena Suri, and welcome to Thriving Changes. Today, I'm in conversation with Ericka Kelly, who shares a journey shaped by survival, courage, and transformation. Her story begins in circumstances filled with hardship and uncertainty, but it doesn't end there. Ericka found a way to not just move forward, but to grow, heal, and lead. Let's dive in. Hi, Ericka. Welcome to Thriving Changes.
I am so excited. Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, it is completely my pleasure. I'm so grateful that you took out the time to do this and be on this platform. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. So
Thank you. Thank you.
it's an honor for me to have you. I'll be honest, when I approached you for this podcast, that if you would consider being a guest
Mhm.
on this show, I was aware a little bit about your professional background and your transition, but I had no clue about the story prior to that. And when we spoke last time, that's when you mentioned it, and I was so fascinated by it. It is such an inspirational story, the whole journey. And I said, would she be open to talking about it? And I said, there's no other way of knowing it but to ask. And you very graciously agreed. It really validates that we can do whatever we set our minds to do, despite all the challenges and hardships that we face. We can still make a very successful life and create that for ourselves if we are intentional about it.
Absolutely.
How we do this on this platform is that I request my guests to talk about their background and who they are.
Absolutely. But before I introduce myself, I would like to just share how amazing it is for the two of us to meet in a self growth, self development environment, for us to know of each other from what we see today. And so it's interesting that when you asked me to be part of your podcast, part of sharing a little bit of my life in front of your audience, of course, I'm going to say yes. There was a purpose, a reason why we met and we continue to have contact throughout.
Yeah.
But this is where I'm at today. Yeah. And today I know that we're going to talk a little bit about what's behind it. I am an executive coach. I've been a coach since 2017. when I was in the process of transitioning out of the American Air Force into civilian, not knowing what I was going to do. And here we go. I love people. Coaching just, it was just a perfect transition for me. But nonetheless, I served in the Air Force for 32 and a half years. And those 32 and a half years were fantastic. But I think that you and everyone that's hearing me say 32 and a half years understand that the programming, the conditioning, the structure that I lived in order for me to find success and significance in the military. And at the same time that I was serving active duty and reserve time in the Air Force, I was able to have a secondary career, which was law enforcement, where I was a special agent for the Departments of Justice and also the Department of Homeland here in the United States. So, two huge, amazing jobs, present job as a coach, and then just as a background piece, an immigrant from Guatemala and a mom of two amazing sons.
Absolutely. I think that's our biggest gift. I treasure that title the most in life. Being a mom is my most precious title.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes. So, how old are your sons?
My sons are 27 is the youngest and 30 the oldest. And it's interesting when we look at our children, I know they're adults, but you are a mom, and anyone that's a parent out there can understand that sometimes I think, and I look at my 27-year-old when he was 4, my 30-year-old when he was 7, and I see me too trying to navigate the, yes, amazing blessing, the huge obligation that I had as a parent to raise two sons as a single parent. And sometimes I just shake my head like, how, where did the time go? How did I do it? How did we do it?
Yeah.
And now we're on the other side of that wave that at times, I must share with you, felt like a storm that wouldn't stop just because sometimes I felt like I didn't have the resources to take care of my little ones.
Yeah. It happens. We all go through certain seasons in our lives when it feels like that, and it's
Hmm. Hmm.
but here you are, and
Yes.
all good. And so it again, as we were talking, that we can overcome. At that time, it might feel very challenging. It's challenging and it's hard, and we don't have the answers. But sometimes it's okay not to have answers, just to have that faith that we can do it and keep working on it. And it works out. Of course, we have to be intentional and we have to do what we need to do, but it works out most
Yes.
often. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. All the pieces fall into place.
absolutely. Yes. I often say that big jigsaw puzzle that they will someday fall into place.
They do. They do.
I think what we are going to do in this podcast, so as we've discussed, we've planned out two podcasts with you. And so one would be I wanted to focus when you arrived in the United States, and then, of course, you're joining the armed forces. And then in the second podcast, we'll focus on your career journey and your transition and take it from there. Because I honestly feel that, as you also said in your introduction, that what you are professionally and where you have managed to reach, there is a backstory and there is a conditioning that happens. And everything that we face, the challenges that we face and we overcome, that becomes a pattern and our conditioning as we move forward in our career. It only makes us more resilient and stronger, and we can face so many other challenges that come. Life is full of challenges at every
Yes.
stage.
Yes.
I'd like to begin from you were born in Guatemala and you lived there till the age of 12. So
Hmm.
if you could just tell us a little bit about that life in Guatemala.
Sure. In Guatemala, I was the oldest of three children. My mother married at the age of 15 to my dear father, who was 16 years old. And by the time my mom was 18 years old, she already had me and my two brothers and separated from that 19-year-old husband of hers. So my exposure to my dad, if I dig into my memory bank, maybe I remember seeing him once or twice my whole life. So, with my mother being a young mom, single parent now of three kids, this is what happened. And I can tell you, I can still feel it. I can still smell it. I can still, if I close my eyes, I go back there. And that is that I was about 5 years old. And I remember playing outside with my brothers. And Guatemala is a tropical, semi-tropical area. So I remember playing and it was raining and the rain was warm and it was just a beautiful feeling, right? And just that, I remember my mom grabbing the three of us and putting us inside the tiny little shack that we lived in. And that had been a safe place for all of us. However, in this situation, my mom locked the door as she left the shack. She locked the door from the outside, leaving my two brothers and I in this wet, uncomfortable, dark. The only light that we could see coming in was the light of the metal roof that we had, and it had holes from the nails, and that's where the tiny little light would come through. I don't want to say that in that moment in my life journey that something happened, but I have to say something happened. Now I am trapped. Something that was safe, it's no longer safe. My mom is gone. My only security is gone. And I'm looking at my brothers who are crying, confused, in the dark. And then I realized, and I don't know how I realized it, but we didn't have any food. We had a little bit of water, but no food. And I wasn't five. I just wasn't five anymore. Now this feeling just surfaced of not of desperation, but this feeling surface of I'm the oldest and I have the responsibility to take care of my brothers. Even though there was not a lot of time in between, I felt this overwhelming feeling of protecting them and making sure they were safe. And so I want to pause here to see if you have any thoughts about that. But that is my foundational piece of how, as a 5 year old small child, small girl, I was able to, for the first time, maybe before I faced other things, but that is the memory that is burned in my mind right now.
It's a very powerful experience. It's a sad experience, but that memory, your brothers were confused and didn't know, but you were also a child. You were
Yeah.
just five. But suddenly you realize that now you have to take care. And in a moment, you realize that your mother is not going to come back. I'm still wondering how you got that feeling, because didn't she ever leave you before, or did she always take you with herself, or was this the first time that she locked you in? I'm wondering all those thoughts. And then I'm also wondering, how did that realization came that she's not coming back?
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
very interesting question. Very interesting question. Again, you and I have done a lot of work on self growth and self development. So if I look back and I can answer that question, I think that years ago I would have not been able to answer that question, but today I can. And that is that my mom was a young woman. She had me when she was 15 years old. And I guess in today's day, she's a child herself.
yes. Yeah.
So I remember that the umbrella of influence in my life was my grandmother. So my mom would come in and out because she's trying to figure out herself. She has a young husband that has left her, and all those dynamics that I'm not aware of. The only thing that I do know is that the only constant thing was my grandmother. My mom was someone that came in and out of my life. And that discovery has helped me a lot as I progress forward with my own journey of gaining awareness.
Yeah. I'm also thinking that fight and flight mode, even at the age of 5, when
Mhm.
none of our cognitive abilities are developed, our executive functioning only develops in the late 20s.
I know that's why sometimes I think about it and I go, how do I even remember these things?
In general, people are not supposed to remember what has happened prior to the age of 5, and even through personal experience also. Then when it's trauma, your body remembers, your brain remembers it, you remember everything, because the fight and flight mode has kicked in, even though you don't realize it. Correct me if I'm wrong, or if you want to add on to it, because in that moment when that fight and flight mode kicked in, that's the moment when you suddenly grew, you transformed.
Agree. Absolutely agree. Because again, like I said earlier, I can feel it. Like even today, years removed, I can feel that emotion of realizing that we were trapped, realizing that she had left.
Left.
And you asked me, how did you know she wasn't coming back? I just did. That empty feeling that sometimes your gut feels is like,
Right?
I just did.
Yep.
I just did. And I looked at my brothers and I thought, how am I going to? How am I going to protect you and keep you alive? And I remember telling my the brother that follows me to make noise, make noise. I was making noise. My little one, my little brother, was crying. As a matter of fact, my little brother, the one that was maybe 2.5, 3, in that room, is the biggest angel in my life. I have guardianship of him today. He is autistic, very high functioning. I don't know if he was autistic then. However, he throughout my life has been an example of what grace and gratitude looks like.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's the side note. But, however, let's go back to that room. And we were in there for 7 days. And those 7 days were desperate moments, very scary moments. But at the same time, there was a feeling of, I know we're going to be okay. I mean, it's like there was this weird combination of feelings of, we just have to stay here and then someone's going to come. And someone came on the seventh day, and that was my grandmother. And my grandmother was this amazing force, like I shared before, where she was the mother figure in my life. And I remember, can I share something that happened in the moment where my grandma came in?
Of course.
Because I think it has to do with, again, conditioning and growth. And sometimes we are removed from an environment, but the scars of that environment then do not stay behind. They come with us.
Yeah.
They come with us. And I remember hearing the noises outside, hearing my grandma's voice, and having this, again, this amazing emotion of yes, yes. And I remember my brothers being on a little corner over here, and I remember being the brave one and standing up and standing in the middle of the room. And what I wanted was for my grandma to open the door and for her to see me and for her to smile. I'm creating this story in my mind. I'm standing there. My grandma's going to see me. She's going to smile. She's going to get on her knees. She's going to give me a big hug. And she's going to say, Erica, did a great job taking care of your brothers. That's what I'm thinking. What happened was different. The door opens and I feel this rush of light. Remember how I told you that we were in darkness and we knew it was day or night just because of how the sun came through those little holes. And so boom, there was this rush of light. And I'm taking it. I'm like, I close my eyes. It's almost like the light moved me. So I feel the light. And then I see my grandma. And I'm waiting because the story is in here. And I'm waiting. And instead of doing everything that I thought she was going to do, she bypasses me. And she goes to my little brother, my autistic brother. And my 5-year old brain does not know how to compute that. So to the way that it told me what was happening, why didn't I get my hug? The way that it gave it to me is you did something wrong. That was the translation. You did something wrong. You're not that important. Someone else is more important. Now, you and I talking today, of course, she went to the baby, of course, but my 5-year old brain couldn't capture that.
Yeah.
The people that came with her, because there was other adults with her, they stopped in the doorway. So I'm still standing in the middle of the room. And as the people are trying to come in, they stop and they see we were there for 7 days. So you can just imagine the smell, what we looked like, everything. So those adults stopped. And because they stopped and I saw horror in their faces, I looked, what are they looking at? For me, it was normal. For I couldn't smell, I couldn't see that there was anything wrong with what they were looking at. So if there was nothing wrong with what they were looking at, then what was wrong is that they were looking at me. And then my brain said, "You are a big disappointment, little girl." And sometimes when I share this story, I do tell people I don't remember what I was wearing. But I do remember that I had black hair like yours, long little girl with long hair, black hair. And I started fixing whatever I had on because my brain was saying, you are disappointing them. They're not coming in, they're making those faces because of you. Because of you. So when my grandma took the three of us out to live with her in another shack, extreme poverty is extreme poverty. Those feelings, new feelings that shack gave me were of I was a disappointment and I was worth nothing. And that is the one child went into that shack and 7 days later another child came back full of doubts and fear and scars.
The emotion that only you can describe, but I can relate what it might have been like just by listening to you. But that moment when you are just waiting because you knew your story was very different from what they were thinking of, what their assumption was. Your story was that suddenly I'm left alone with my brothers and I have to take care. That's your story. And you are the adult now, you are the responsible one taking care of them.
Yeah.
And I don't know what their assumptions were, but did they not realize that your mother had left you, or and they
No,
didn't?
no. They were looking for her.
Okay.
I'm learning this later. They were looking for her. They had not seen her and they were looking for her. So by my grandmother opening the door, she was not expecting to see us half dead, half starving, dirty. I don't know. I don't want to be graphic, but we had body lice. So some kids get head lice. We had body lice, and so we were a mess. We were an absolutely mess, and to a point. Even before all of this happened, we were so poor that we did not eat every day. We would eat whenever we could eat. And at times we would eat ants in the dirt that came with those ants in order just to keep going. So just three already starving kids being left behind for 7 days, you can imagine the mess
Yes.
that my
And
grandma faced.
right. And was there a restroom in your shack, or you were
No, it was
so
a room.
yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
yes. We slept on the floor. We had a little corner maybe where the adults would use coal to make fire and cook, but there was no restroom
Yeah.
inside. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that room was everything.
So that's why I'm saying when those adults came in,
They
can,
smelled and
can you
yeah.
imagine the smell? Can you imagine the horrific scene that they were exposed to? That for me was normal.
Yeah. Our bodies, our brains are designed to keep us safe. And even in that traumatic and very difficult situations, it was just coping with whatever was around and with it. And you must have become immune to it. For you, it was just survival. I
Yeah.
guess.
So I did not think that anything around us was wrong. I did not smell any foul smells. And when those adults came in, then the horror that I saw in their faces was not about the environment that they found us in. It was about me not
That's
being
how you,
good enough.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's how you took it. Yeah.
That's how my 5-year-old brain took it. Yes.
Yeah.
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 I did not know that the bugs that I had all over my body were bad. I did not
Yeah.
know why people didn't want to touch me. I couldn't understand why this, because my hair was thick and black and beautiful. And then my head was shaven. So now I'm not there anymore, but now I am still five with my grandma with a shaved head that had bumps all over it because the bugs, I mean, they had a nice feel to, so they went inside the skin of my skull. So I had not just I, my brother did too, but this big bumps where all the eggs of the lice were in there. So as a child with my grandma, then can you imagine the other children in the neighborhood, what they were saying about me and my brothers in a Hispanic, well, maybe globally, but I'm just talking about personally, my culture. A mom doesn't abandon their children, doesn't leave them to die. And the list of what people were saying, and again, I was not blaming my mom. I was putting everything on me. She left me because I'm not good. She left because, so everything continued to reinforce that I should have zero worth and zero value. And I'm sharing this with you because it's really easy at the beginning of our conversation today. So it's really easy to talk about a resume and talk about the things that we have accomplished in life. And I'm not diminishing the amazing things that I have accomplished in life. However, I do want to share with you and your audience that I was ashamed.
Yeah.
I was hurt. And for years, I did not tell my story because the shadow of, well, or the need of wanting to assimilate to a new culture like in the United States, or the need to assimilate to being in your presence. If you knew about what happened to me, then you would say, you do not deserve to be in my presence, and you would push me away. So me telling my story is, it's a fact in my truth that I have grown as an individual. Because if I would have not worked on self growth, self development, awareness, and everything that we talk you and I talk about when we're coaching people, I would still be that broken human.
So, moving on with the story, what happened? How did they treat that?
The bumps and the
Bumps and everything.
yeah, all that needed to be treated before I could start school, be around kids. So again, this little bit of isolation of you have something and people, adults or children, don't want to and should not touch you. Again, another little scar. But yeah, just medicine and treatment and everything. My hair grew back and everything worked out.
Worked out.
I went to school. However, this is something that I do share because again, I'm not ashamed of my history anymore, but I don't share it openly. And what happened is that now my grandma had three kids to take care of, a missing daughter, and on and on. So my grandma would tell the three of us to be quiet anytime we went to a family's house, a family member's house that were a little bit, they didn't live in a shack, maybe they lived in a nicer little house, but nonetheless, they were better off than we were. And the purpose for my grandma was to go beg for a piece of bread, go beg for a meal, go beg for a few pennies. And so her instructions to us were, do not make noise, be quiet. And if you are asked to do anything, you do it and you say nothing. Anytime we went to those family members' homes, so two things happened, and I think it's critical. Every time we went to those houses, I would be, let's say, in a public place with other kids and other adults. And there were three cousins of my mother that would pull me away from that little group and would say, we're going to take Erica to play outside. They would just target me, and they would take me to a garage, to a bathroom, to the back of the house. It didn't matter. And they would do whatever they wanted with my, by then, 6, 7, 8 year old body. Mm. And so that would happen when we went to their home. However, sometimes they would come over to the little shack that we lived in and bring my grandmother, oh, we brought you this. And then they would go, oh, let me take Erica out for something. And again, they would remove me from my grandma's presence, and then the abuse would continue. Again, I would see my grandma walking with some bread, walking with food. Maybe she said that they gave her a little bit of money. And I thought, I'm not saying anything. I am being quiet and I'm helping my grandma take care of the family.
That is your brain, that's how your brain processed it. But if you look at all the research that people have done on young girls who get abused, even boys now, that the shame doesn't allow them to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah,
It's so deeply personal, that shame. It's hard to talk about it,
right.
what you go through at that time. I'm also a product of abuse, so yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
And it's, regardless of whatever they say, the shame that is borne by that person who's going through, it's your dignity is being ripped away.
yeah. But obviously, at that young age, you don't
You
know
don't understand, you don't,
what to name it, right?
yes, you don't understand, you can't name it,
Hmm.
but you can feel it, you can
Of course,
sense it.
of course.
So it is, again, that shame creeps up, and for some reason, invariably, we blame ourselves that we must
Hmm.
have done something.
I did for sure.
Yeah.
And then my best friend was isolation because I would see other kids laugh and have fun and have a relationship with a parent. Bottom line, they were different. Bottom line, they were different. So I thought, they're normal and I'm broken. And I don't want them to see my brokenness. So it's better for them not to get to know me. It's better for me not to share anything. It's better for me to just stay on the side.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, Erica. I'm so sorry that you had to go through this. Thank you for sharing.
I was, again, like I shared, I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I played a lot with the imposter syndrome. If they knew who I was, they wouldn't allow me to be here, kind of situation. However, at least in my lifetime right now, I understand my purpose. And so then I understand that is my origin story. I understand that because of that, innately we are born with a gift, but also life teaches us and gives us gifts. So that moment, and again, I mean, we're talking about this moment in my life, but that doesn't mean that life didn't stop being life throughout my life until today. However, I do know now that I can smile, I feel joy, I feel peace, and that everything that has happened to me is to live out my purpose of why do I exist in this world, which gives me fulfillment. I share with you that I was a special agent. What cases did I work? Some of the cases were human trafficking and human smuggling. And who was I talking to? I was talking to young children that were broken. I was talking to women who had been raped thousands of times. And I believe, I don't think, I believe that my background and everything that I have gone through have been tools for me to give hope, a little bit of light to those souls that when I encounter them were broken just like I was in the past.
What's coming to my mind, there's a force outside of us which has placed you in that, because you were part of the special forces and they come across as so tough and so
I
they have.
am tough.
No, you are tough. Oh, you're very tough. I don't doubt that. No, what I mean is like in the masculine sense.
Yes,
They
yes,
come
yes, yes.
across that they have to put aside their heart to do the hard stuff.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
When you encounter these ladies, these young kids who have gone through that kind of trauma, right?
Mhm.
Then that special agent who has been placed there to rescue them, to support them, to bring them to safety, but also other than having that tough persona, has a soft heart that understands what they go through.
Yeah,
It's
it's interesting that you say that. In my law enforcement career, I got to a point of being an instructor and being a senior agent, teaching the rookie agents, the new agents. And I remember because when in law enforcement and also in the military, when you are given control and when you are given authority, there is a line that if you're not careful you cross, and now instead of you being the protector, you are the aggressor.
yes.
So I always remember telling myself, but also sharing with other agents, do not take the dignity away from another human. And it doesn't matter who they are, what they have done, they're in custody now. Show human respect. So, those two things, the dignity and respect, was always my guiding force. And I think it also, for me to think of that, like you said, the carrying a gun, carrying a badge, and enforcing laws was a part, but the empathy, the integrity, the human side of it was another force that equally, at least for me, had to walk together in order for me to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. You said it so perfectly because I don't understand that language, the armed forces language, and how to use that. But you crafted it so beautifully. That the responsibilities of an officer and what it comes
Hmm.
with the empathy and the leadership, the human side of leadership. It's so beautiful in so many ways. And
Yeah. Yeah. Even if you're looking at law enforcement in general, Even if you're looking at the military in general, I think that those two forces claim, protect, and defend. So if you hold on to protecting and defending, then you're going to do well. You're going to have a fulfilled life in that career.
It's interesting you bring this up because the last guest that I interviewed, and he interestingly, if you've seen the movie A Few Good Men, the Tom Cruise
Yeah,
movie, the Tom Cruise character was partially based on him. And that we spoke about that movie, but what you're saying, that there's a thin line that you cross, and that's what the movie is all about.
that's right. That's right. I think that in my journey of dealing with abandonment from my mother, maybe social rejection because of what happened to me shortly after being rescued, and then being mentally, physically, and sexually abused. I talk about this and I'm thinking, what? Those are big things that we're saying.
Yeah,
And so I don't want to minimize what has happened to my body and mind. However, believe it or not, I can appreciate what happened to me if I can help another human get through it.
that's what evolution is all about. Like, you worked on yourself. It requires work. You If you keep playing the victim, then you probably cannot help others. You have to overcome that, and you have to be on the other side. And it requires forgiveness. It requires coming to terms and understanding what happened behind, understanding, like, you're talking about your mother was also a child. Rather than blaming, she knew nothing better, and she didn't know any other way to protect, I guess, herself, or what she didn't even probably understand the consequences of what she was doing. But you've worked through that. You've looked at the whole picture and tried to understand another perspective and look at it from everybody's viewpoint,
Correct.
not just your mothers, your grandmothers, the people who were standing at the door who were refusing to come in, the children at school or neighbors. But you've done that work, and you've looked at it from every perspective. And it's not minimizing what you've gone through, but it's coming to terms that what is around it, now you understand why what happened to you happened.
Yes.
And getting to know that why heals us. I think there's no greater healer than just forgiveness, when you realize the why, and that even though it still hurts, as you said, those scars will always be with you. They can never go away. But a sense of peace comes in, I think,
Right.
that just by understanding that. It doesn't minimize the scars, it doesn't minimize the hurt, but along with it, there is a sense of peace. And because of that and the forgiveness, you found the strength to move on and build on it and do everything it took for you to become healthier, wiser, and successful.
I like the wiser part. Yes. But let me share this with you because forgiveness is the key of everything that we're talking about, everything that I'm sharing. I could have had commitment, persistence, resilience, all of that, faith, a desire to do better, all that. But without this amazing power of forgiveness, everything would have landed flat. And forgiveness is unconditional. So I don't need an apology from those men. I don't need an apology from my mom. I don't need an explanation that makes sense to me to forgive. Unconditional forgiveness, unconditional love is exactly that. You don't put conditions to it.
Yeah.
However, I do need to, I don't want to sound like the wise person you mentioned earlier because I can tell you, just like I beat myself up a lot, I also blamed a lot.
Yeah.
And I would look at God and say, where were you when I needed you? Why me? I did not ask for this to happen, for me to be poor, for me to not eat, for me to not have a childhood, for me not to. I had a whole list of why me. And then I was very angry at my mother. and anger for a little bit consumed me. And not until, again, that self growth, self development, awareness, all those changing habits, because it's so easy to go back to being a victim. Did I, what helped me a lot was instead of saying, why me? Then something, a little voice said, so that means you wish that on somebody else? And I'm like, no, I don't. So then I switched it to, why not me? And then that helped me start reframing. Anytime I would go to the dark side of Erica, I would start reframing my thoughts. And that helped me understanding that forgiveness comes unconditional. Then I went through the process because it's a
It's a
process.
process. It's a process.
Mm,
It's not easy to come to forgiveness. To let go is hard, and especially when you've gone through things like what you've gone through.
yes.
It's not easy. It's hard. It's similar to the five stages of grief: the denial, the anger, and then forgiveness.
That sadness, the acceptance. And I think that again, if you don't know how to name it, you're going through that roller coaster of emotions. And then like for me, at least for a little bit of my life, I was just bouncing.
Yeah.
I was bouncing from wall to wall, from person to person, and then I would get on the other side of something.
And to come to think of it, Eric, what you were feeling, all the blame that you were putting on yourself, the anger, and
Yeah.
the cries to God, even blaming God for what's happening to you,
Mm-hmm.
it's part of us being human. We have
Yes.
feelings. It's
Yeah.
part of that. And at that point, you knew nothing better. You didn't know the other side at that time.
No.
And it is part of the journey. You need to vent that out. Only
Yes.
when you vent out all that is consuming you, all
Yeah.
the weeds, if we don't vent that out, we don't create space for something else.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. Thank you for saying that.
It's needed. I've done it. I'm with you right there. So
Yes, yes. And
everything that you mentioned, I've done that.
so then that's because we're not alone.
Yeah.
My story is my story, yours is yours, but anybody that's hearing this podcast can say, and it's of such a personal journey.
Yes.
However, what is it that we as children pick up? And
Yes.
it's me. I am. And we start making this, if they're positive, fantastic, but most of the time they're not. I am statements are very negative about ourselves. And then we wonder as adults, why do we say, I don't want to do that? And the next thing we know, we're doing it. I don't want to say that. And then the next thing we know, we're
No,
saying it.
it's part of it. We do the things that we don't want to do. Somehow we can't control them. And
Yes.
it's just we are human. At the end of the day, we are human, and
Yeah,
it's just our humanness that is showing up.
I
And
agree.
so your journey, we haven't even completed it, but it is such a inspirational journey of what you've gone through to evolve to being with this mindset today.
Yeah.
It's a journey. It's not easy getting here. So tell me, going back to the story, now you are, of course, living with your grandma and you're back to school and life is what it is.
Hmm.
And then your mom comes back.
Yes. So by then I'm 12. The abuse continues from those family members. So I'm still in this bubble of blurriness. However, Guatemala went through a huge earthquake that almost destroyed the whole country. And this was in 76. So a long time ago for your young audience.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. However, the news of the earthquake made it to the United States, where my mom lived in California with her new husband and a baby girl daughter that was not even a year old. And she hears about the earthquake and she tells her husband, I need to see how my mom is doing. And when my mom arrives, she finds, yes, her mom, but she also finds the three of us in the middle of the street. Whatever we had, completely destroyed. It was my first exposure. I knew that people died, but I was not exposed to that. But that earthquake, little kids, elderly, people died, and there was funerals and viewings and all that almost every day. So when my mom came back, she found us in the middle of the street with four sheets around us and us sitting in the middle, and that was our shelter. I remember seeing her, did not recognize. She really faded away from my memory bank. And then the next thing the three of us know is my grandma sits the three of us and she says, "This is my daughter." In my mind, literally, the brain's so amazing at trying to protect us. My brain went, "Daughter? I have an older sister?" And because she had me when she was 15, so it's not a big deal. And then so she says, "This is my daughter, your mom, and she is going to take you to the United States." And again, I'm 12. My middle brother is confused but happy. My little brother does not know I was angry. I was like, "Who are you again? And where are you going? No, you're not. This is my home. The four sheets. This is my home. You're not taking me away. I'm not going. I'm not going anywhere with a stranger." However, I was only 12 and I couldn't argue too much.
Yeah.
And that's what started the journey of walking roughly 1,500 miles to get to the United States.
You walked all the way.
We walked, and then sometimes it's like the journey itself can be a soap opera in itself. However, we slept on the side of the road. We begged for people to give us food,
Food.
give us money. And sometimes we would end up with a trucker. Mm. And then they would go, "Jump up,
Yeah.
where are you going?" And then they would take us from one city to the next and then walk and then get little rides like that. However, it for another conversation maybe, it was a journey that again can change someone's life completely. And then we got to the border. We got to the border of Mexico and California. And I remember my stepdad. His name was, he passed away quite a few years ago, John. And I see John, this tall Caucasian American, blue eyes. I never seen anybody with blue eyes before. And I'm like, what is going on? And so again, I see this huge male influence. And then just like that, I see his disappointment. I see his sadness. I see his anger. I see this, ugh, like he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to think. I don't know what's going on. I don't speak English. I just know that this man that's supposed to be my mom's husband, supposed to be helping us, does not look like he wants to help. And then later, years later, I learned that my mother never told him that she had three kids. And when he saw us, that was the first time that my mom was saying, "It took me this long to come back because I didn't want to leave my three kids behind." That was his first exposure
Oh.
to three kids.
So tell me, help me understand this, that when she came back looking for her mother, was she expecting you there, you guys there, or
I never asked her. I have never, and she now, so just a little bit so I can put another piece of the puzzle together. I never asked her because I thought if I'm going to forgive her, I'm going to forgive her regardless of. So, what I am thinking is that when she locked the door from the outside, she did it to create distance because her mom and other family members would have said, "No, you're not going away. You're going to stay here and you're going to take care of those kids." And what she was trying to do, third world is third world, everyone. And seeing herself at the age of 20 with three kids, no husband, no skills, she would have been a prostitute. That would have been the way that she would have fed us. And she made a decision to leave. And when she left, she locked the door from the outside. I don't think ever thinking that it was going to take 7 days for someone to find
To
us.
find out. Yeah.
Hmm?
Probably in her head also, she thought that grandma will probably come by a couple
Exactly. Not 7 days
of
later,
days
but
later.
maybe a day later or something like that. And later, again, it's always nice to see the picture from the other side. That journey to the United States, she did it with a girlfriend. And again, both of those young ladies, because my mom was 20 and her friend was 19, they made the journey to the United States.
I'm surprised and grateful that nothing even in that journey happened, because girls can get hijacked in that journey.
And again, that's why I said maybe for a different conversation.
Yeah,
And because, like, when I say her journey with her friend was an adventure, but also her journey with her three children, it was also an adventure. So then here I am in the United States, 12 years old, with John, my stepdad, who just doesn't know where to place us. And I think his love towards my mother maybe blinded him a little bit. So for years, he reminded me and my two brothers that we were intruders, that we did not belong in his house, that we don't talk. I don't want to even see you. It was not a good, like, why did you bring us here? I was like, why did you do this to us? But nonetheless, here I am in the United States, and I'm quickly realizing two things. And the two things is that I need to learn the language. And the second thing is that I need an education. Don't ask me how I knew that at 12, but I knew it. I knew that if I was going to break whatever mold, because I didn't know what mold I was following, but if
yeah,
I was going to make it
make it.
in the United States, I needed education and the language behind me. And that's what started the journey of wanting to be in the military. That's what started the journey of, I don't want to say confronting my mom, but confronting my mom. As a 12-year-old, I was saying no. So I became, maybe to her, I became this rebellious child. I wasn't trying to be rebellious, but I desperately wanted something different for myself, even at that young age. So at one point in time, just before I went in, I just wanted to finish high school. I wanted to finish high school, and my mom, again, had me when she was 15, second grade education. For her, school was completely not part of her awareness. For her, education, nothing. And also the language, who cares? You don't need to learn English. The United States is gracious enough that you're going to be okay. How am I going to be okay, mom? You're going to find someone, a guy, that's going to take care of you. So you don't need language and you don't need school. So I was fighting. And I think I was in the 10th grade of high school. And she said, no more school. And I didn't even know about college then. I didn't. I thought, this is me. I thought if I finish high school, I have made it in the United States. That was my goal, was high school. And then I was, mom, people in the United States finish high school. And she's like, no. So I quit. I quit school and went to work as she recommended, highly recommended. And then I said, can I go to night school? I'll work. I'll give you my check, but can I go to night school? And she's like, if you can get yourself to school, because I'm not going to give you a ride. She really, and I'm not judging my mom. Please don't
No,
think that I'm
because
judging
that
my mom.
it was her awareness, level of awareness.
She's like, you want to learn the hard way that it doesn't matter, you're going to find your own way. Nonetheless, by then I think I'm 16 years old, and things just got a little difficult with going to school and home. And my mom decided to kick me out of the house. So now She brings me at the age of 12, and now I'm 16. And now she says, "You're too much of a trouble. I can't handle you." And now I see myself as a 16-year-old in the United States, in the city of Las Vegas, homeless. Because I was working, one of my coworkers realized the situation that I was in and said, "Erica, if you pay me rent, I'll rent you a room." And her name is Margie. Margie helped me. And she rented me a room in her house. She moved her kids to another room, and I had a room. So when I moved with Margie, I went back to school and I did 2 years in high school in 1 year so I could at least graduate. The year of graduation was going to be the same with everybody else. And then I ended up being part of the amazing United States Air Force at the age of 22.
Wow. I have one question, just going back a little bit. How did you become naturalized? Because of your mother's citizen? She was a citizen?
Yeah, my mom was married to John when we crossed the border, and we crossed in a car. So this is what I do remember. I remember being in a car with my mom, one of her girlfriends, and the three of us, and going through the checkpoint, and the border patrol saying whatever in English, and my mom and her friend answering something in English, and the officer saying, "Okay, move." So I grew up in the United States, not having that shadow of I shouldn't be here. I didn't know.
Mhm.
I did not know until maybe 17, 18, when now I'm trying to find a better job. And then they're asking me for some sort of legal status in the United States. And then that started the roller coaster of I don't have a legal status in the United States.
So, how
Mhm.
did that happen?
Again, going back to my mom kicking me out at 16, and I think your audience knows that so far, Erica does not have a good role outside of my grandma. I don't have a good role model of what a relationship, healthy relationship is. I
Yeah,
don't.
you don't.
So at 16, I meet someone that is a gentleman that is 32 years old. And he's nice, he's kind. And in my brain, because my brain is really good at making stories, remember? I'm thinking, he's my savior, he's my protector, he's going to defend me. And for the first time really in my life, I felt safe with him until I was 16 with
There's
Margie.
more.
Oh, there's more. There's more. 16 with Margie, going to high school at night and dating my 32-year-old soon to be husband. Not soon to be, because I met him when I was 16, but I married him when I was 20. So because of that marriage is how I was able
Too.
to get a green card and get my citizenship. However, that kind, really protective gentleman soon, like even when I was 17, I had bruises from the neck down. So his protectiveness was complete control of my mind, complete control of my body. But my story,
Yeah.
I don't have a good model. So me attracting a man like that, I can see it very clearly now. But however, it's very normal for his abuse. And people, friends would go, "What's up, Bruce? Oh, the gym. Oh, I fell." And some very nice women in my life, they would go, "Erica, if he's doing this to you, you need to break up the relationship." And I go, "Doing what?" Because he didn't have a concept of him doing anything wrong, because it was my fault after all. So going back to how I ended up in the military, I'm in this relationship where truly the escalation of violence is so much that the police, in those days, the laws are different now. In those
Yes.
days, if you didn't say he did it, they wouldn't do anything. So you stay there. But police officers will pull me to the side and go, "Erica, if you don't do something to save your life, we're going to find your dead body in the Nevada desert. And that didn't click to me until I truly one day thought he was going to kill me. And then the voice of that police officer stayed with me. If you don't do something to save you, and then I thought, I started analyzing that statement. And then I thought, I have a saying in this. I can choose. I have control. And all these things. By then, I'm 21. 16 to 21 is like my body, like, I'm tough. My body
Wow.
was bruised for
Yeah.
years. And then I saw a commercial on TV. I always wanted to be in the military. I just thought it was a dream that would never happen. And then I'm watching a commercial, and it's an Air Force commercial. And I had to, this is how much control he had over me. Every morning I would get up and I would say, sir, not husband, not honey, not by name, sir, can I eat today? And my frame would not change. Now, my frame is my frame, but I have never been heavy. And he would look at me up and down and say, you look like a pig today, so don't eat. And he didn't have to be home. If he said do not eat, I wouldn't eat. My hair was long. Do you want me to wear my hair up or down? Do you want me to wear I had to ask for everything. So of course I'm watching this commercial, and something inside me is, you gotta ask. So I said, sir, do you mind if I try to go into the Air Force? He was reading a newspaper and he puts it down a little bit, like, he's like, you're ugly, you're stupid, they're gonna say no, but do whatever you want. That was my permission. That was my permission to go talk to somebody, test, get approved. The Air Force said yes. And for me to start spreading my wings, start growing, start making decisions, start changing, and on and on and on and on. But that's how I ended up in the Air Force, because I was trying to literally save my life.
And did you have kids by then?
Do not. But I do have two sons from different two marriages.
Okay.
Yes.
Understood. So when did you leave him?
So not until I was 26. So this is the interesting cycle of abuse. It's not like, oh, I got awareness and I got really strong really fast. And lo and behold, look at me. I'm strong.
No.
Negative. I went to the Air Force. I got basic training. I went to my first schoolhouse, they call it, my first career in the Air Force. And then I came home. And I came home to the same abuser. But I was different. I had changed. And so I started putting little boundaries around me. I'm still your wife. Please don't hit me anymore. I'm your wife. Please show a little bit of respect. And so I started putting boundaries on him. But sadly, those boundaries lasted maybe a month or so. And then his overwhelming abuse, I just went back to what it was before I left for basic training. However, I would have my friends, I would have that military environment, that even though I was ashamed of what was happening at home, they were my role models of what good was. They were my role models of amazing leadership. They were my models in which, not until I was 26. So I was with him for 10 years of my life. Not until I was 26 did I say, thank you. Thank you for the lessons. Thank you for being part of my life journey. I am leaving you tomorrow. And tomorrow came, and that's the day that I left.
Good for you.
And then it's to be continued, because life keeps going.
Life keep going, and it takes time to rewire. You need that sustainability. You need to have that environment where your mind can develop healthier habits. You need to sustain those habits, and you didn't have that. Even in your Air Force life, you went for a certain period of time, but you came back to that same environment.
It's not like I left. No, it was
Exactly.
I left. It did change me. It did give me foundation. It did give me a different way of thinking. But however, my home base was my home base. And
Yes.
that's why it's interesting at the beginning of our conversation today. You're like, okay, well, next time we talk, we'll talk about your 32 years in the Air Force and then you're transitioning out of uniform to being an executive coach. And we'll talk about your journey from childhood to the United States to the military in this episode. But do you not see how everything's interconnected? Isn't
Absolutely.
it magnificent?
I'm like thinking, we should have a series. So,
But it's the life chapters that we all have in which sometimes when we're going through the storm, we're thinking that storm is permanent. And then we just have to be strong enough to bear that storm and then look at it from the other side. And that's one of the biggest lessons I learned from my grandmother. At the time, I didn't understand it, but I understand it very clearly now. And that is that we lived with no electricity, no running water, dirt floors, floods, you name it. Extreme poverty is extreme poverty. We lived in a mess. And I sometimes we go, can I go and make tortillas with the neighbors? Because if I made tortillas with them, they would give us some so we could eat. And my grandmother would say, no, no, you're not. Because if you go make tortillas over there, you are going to normalize that that is who you are. And that is not who you are, Erica. What we're going through right now is temporary. Your future is not making tortillas. And she would, every time I said, can I do this with the neighbors? She's like, you're not them. This is temporary. You got to look at your future. You got to look at your potential.
yeah. So
This is
you
my
learned that.
this is my grandma. And obviously she didn't know what was happening to my body, but this is my grandma giving me this amazing life lesson that maybe in
To
my
envision.
subconscious, I don't, this circumstances is not me. There's more. This situation is not me. There's more. That's kind of cool.
That is cool. That is cool. And that set the stage for you to overcome everything that you have.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my
It's
God. This is amazing, Erica. This is such an amazing story. I was so engrossed the whole time. I was just so fixated with the story.
so
You
we'll continue the next
will
time.
continue the next
And
time.
then I'll share with you what I can about my amazing life in the military.
Thank you for your time. I know we've really gone overboard. I really didn't know when to say, where to interfere and say stop, because it was so engrossing and interesting. And I wanted to know and I was
Oh,
curious. And I'm so grateful for you to share your heart. There are some parts of us that we don't really want to share with others, and it's very personal, but you have been so gracious to share it all. And I think that's what makes it so powerful, the
I
whole
think
story.
that I think that if we are comfortable sharing our story with the understanding that our story is really not about us, we're just the vessel living the life, but it's about helping somebody else with that story, then the discomfort that we feel by being vulnerable like that fades away if we do know that it's going to help somebody else get through whatever storm they're going through right now.
True. Absolutely. And that's what this platform is all about. That's why I created this, that if it can empower somebody who's going through something similar, we all have, our stories are very different,
Yeah.
but if it can motivate somebody else to take charge and do something with whatever they're going through, our job is done.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing. And I'll see you next time.
Till next time.